Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson. I'll be your host for this one. This week it's another two-man show. This time it's just me and Joris, and I feel like this has not been a combination of people we've had as just a two for so long. Usually Scott is kind of the anchor of the podcast, so we've lost our holding midfielder, and we're now kind of mixing it up a little bit, going a little bit extravagant. I'm not sure, but hopefully it will still turn out all right. Joris, how are you doing? I know you've been in Belgium recently, weren't able to watch any football, but how was the return to the motherland?
It was good. It was good. Had some quality time with my family mainly, and saw some people. So that's always nice to get. But yeah, unfortunately, indeed, no football. I wish I could squeeze it in, but it didn't happen in the end.
No, unfortunate. There's plenty of time for that though. If you're listening to this and you're going to miss the Scottish tones of Scott. He was on a podcast already this week. The man he's just never stopping really. This is unheard of for him to not be here. But he did go on the Football Heritage podcast and talk about the situation at Denzer. We mentioned it a bit last week, and then obviously the news broke. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, it's fantastic episode as always with Rory over there, who's great. Scott, obviously, we think is great because we're biased, but the two of them together, fantastic podcast. So we'd definitely recommend listening to that if you haven't already. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. Let's quickly go through the scores from the Pro League before we dive into the matches. Friday the 13th, unlucky for some, that was a Mechelen 1-1 draw with Antwerp. Mechelen celebrating their 120th anniversary as well, so quite a special occasion for them. Biscot drew 0-0 with Stanley Liège, no surprise there. Leuven beat Charleroi 1-0. Kortrijk lost 3-0 to Dender at home, and that cost someone their job, which we'll talk about soon. Club, they beat Genk in the top game of Sunday. That one finished 2-0. Union beat Westerlo 3-1. Sint-Truiden lost 2-0 at home to Anderlecht. And then Ghent, they drew 1-1 with Cercle Bruges. Let's start with that Mechelen Antwerp game, Joris. It's a shame, I guess, for Mechelen they weren't able to really celebrate that 120-year anniversary. Lots has happened in those 120 years. A couple of title wins, a couple of European Cups, a couple of very unsavoury off-the-field situations that are still kind of being dealt with today. That hasn't really completely gone away yet and still kind of hangs over them a little bit. Not great in terms of injuries as well. They went into this game, they're still getting absolutely decimated by injuries against an Antwerp side that, without Vincent Janssen, there's just no one really there to lead the line. Like, kind of went with Kirk, but I don't think Kirk's really the striker that would suit their system anyway. And I think it's clear they need to do something in January to kind of back up Janssen, because he was suspended, but what if he got injured? Like, what are they going to do then? And then, for Mechelen, Raman coming off on, then going off again with an injury, just can't really catch a break, to the point we saw Julian and Goy come on. That's how deep into the kind of the squad Besnik Harsi's had to go that the forgotten man made a return. Who knows, maybe he's going to feature a little bit more. He might have to, the way things are going there. But a result that doesn't really help either side. Kind of, they're both slightly out of form at the moment. But a great atmosphere and a great celebration kind of for the history of Mechelen as a football team.
Yeah, they had invited a few famous heads from in that history as well before the game. So that was really nice to see all these familiar and famous faces again. But yeah, you touched on it already. Even more injury worries now with Raman coming off. Also, Marsa was struggling by the end of the game. I'm not sure if that was just stretching or actually an injury. I didn't see any update on that. But that's even more worrying, of course. Not that I've been too impressed with him personally in his performances, but yeah, they can use any man at the moment in any position. And I mean, he's been featuring the starting 11 all the time in a squad that has generally been performing well. So I mean, that's definitely not a that would be a miss if that actually is something as well. You also touched on it. Both teams a bit out of form. For Mechelen, that's now in the league, only 1 point out of the last 3 games, and an additional cup exit against Beerschot as well. That's a little bit falling off at the moment. They hopefully can turn that around in time, because they lost their really good position in the in the classifications as well a little bit. They're still in a good position, but not that much ahead of a lot of other sides back to the middle, which they seemed to have outgrown a little bit around about a month ago. To mention from their side, of course, is Heremans giving an assist to what we still can call his side, I believe. So yeah, that's definitely something that's worth mentioning. And a recurring theme this weekend actually, like some repeat feats. Van den Ende scoring a header against Antwerp. Yeah, we've seen that earlier this season as well, in the away game, and that time it was a winner, and now the important equalizer and deserved equalizer as well. I think Mechelen did indeed deserve at least a point in this game. On Antwerp, then, they haven't won in their last 4 league games. I feel like Lammers could have done a bit better on that Van den Enden goal as well. It was not completely unstoppable, and it was mainly like he should get that ball. Also, not the only time we saw that from a goalkeeper this weekend. And apart from that, they haven't won. Antwerp haven't won the last 4 games against Mechelen as well, specifically. So that's 2 draws and 2 losses. 2 draws in the away games, are weirdly enough, and 2 losses in the home games across the last 2 seasons. And Odoi was a lucky boy as well to get away with a yellow card, I believe, for his tackle, which arguably deserves another color as well. But apart from that, they indeed lack some attacking prowess there. Even though Kirk got a few chances, it's easy to say now. Okay, it showed in the that they missed a real striker, that they because of the it was a Tuba own goal was the only way they could score. But okay, that would be a little bit too easy because Kirk was also there, and he probably would have scored if Tuba didn't. I guess a result where both teams are unhappy with in the end.
Yeah, no, I think it is kind of like one of those where you kind of look at both teams and those results and the way they've been kind of playing. You just feel that they just could desperately do with that winter break. They're like all of those of us who have been working solidly for the last year. You're like, yeah, I'm done. I'm ready for a nice little break. And maybe that's how they feel. Who knows? Maybe that's why Doy tackled like he did, because he was like, I could actually do with a little bit of an extended break, but you didn't actually get one. You didn't get sent off. Which is obviously Mechelen lost to Beerschot in the cup. They hosted Standard Liège, finished 0-0. It felt like it was always going to finish 0-0 between these two sides. Like the way that Standard defensively have been pretty decent but can't score. Beerschot can't really score. Normally can't really defend either, but Nick Shinton's been pretty decent in goal. I think he's had a pretty good season. I mentioned that last week, but I think the stats I saw, because I didn't actually see his game, was he made 1 save all game, which is just a bit ludicrous. Whereas Apollo had to make 8 saves down the other end. So frustration, I guess, for Beerschot, because those are sort of games that they're going to create all those chances and have all these opportunities and stuff against a goalkeeper who, to be fair, shot stopping is probably his best attribute at the moment. Like, it's his decision making with his feet and decision making for crosses that he's struggling with, which I feel like if you had to pick a weakness as a young keeper, you'd rather it was the latter two and that he could actually save shots. Because if he can save shots, you can work on footwork and you can work on like commanding and crosses and all that sort of stuff. But he can't save anything. It's like, what's the point of being a goal? But yeah, it means they do need to win those sorts of games to kind of start clawing their way back. And I think they've been better. They've clearly been better in recent weeks, and they seem to have a lot more belief about them and stuff like that. And a couple of weeks ago, if you said, "Oh, you'd pick up a point at home," like the way they were playing, you'd have been like, "Okay, this is decent. You need as many draws and stuff as you can." But it's one of those games that I feel like they probably should have targeted as a win, just because of the way Standard can't score. And it's like, if you could at least just get 1 goal, they're going to really struggle to come back. But yeah, I guess For Standard as well, it's frustrating, like not being able to beat the bottom team. It just kind of sums up their kind of campaign so far that they just for some reason they really are creating absolutely nothing. And when they are creating the odd thing, like Zakiri basically has to put it in the back of the net, or it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you basically summed up everything I wanted to say as well. But another game where both teams are probably unhappy with the draw in the end. But for Beerschot, I guess it's slightly better in a way, or like a positive sign. It's at least they did miss efficiency here. They really should have put at least one past Apollo, but yeah, that we'll get to that a bit later again. But yeah, but they were creating a lot for being the outright bottom side of the league. So that's encouraging. But they need to win these games by this time if they want to have this fighting chance. They have to catch a few of the sides before them. Yeah, that's it's encouraging, but it could be there is already too little, too late. Okay, way too early to say, and like a month ago or 2 months ago, it looked even worse for them. So it's not like that. But the unfortunate thing is, other sides are also picking up points still. So I think they caught up with that pace more or less, but they need to, yeah, actually do better than those sides at the moment, of course, to catch on, to catch up completely. So that's so far not happening. But yeah, in this game, Ipolo saving the point for Standard for sure. You mentioned it, 8 saves. Got a 9.2 on FODMAP, which is not too shabby. And yeah, there were a few really good saves in there as well, especially the one against Verlinde, who probably should have finished better as well, but nonetheless, yeah, that he saved a point for them, which is not what you would have expected at that time. But yeah, for Standard, that's also now 3 draws in a row in the league against teams in the bottom half of the ranking as well. So that's, well, it seems to be the same Standard as the last few years as well. Like struggling to win or get a result over the line against the bottom sides. Granted, one of those three, the initial one was again a Walloon derby against Charleroi, so that's always a little bit different. But they gave it away in the final minute as well there. So that with that previous point maybe again, or is going more into that narrative at least. Yeah, and against some of the top sides, they have performed better and gotten some points. Yeah, we'll see. But it's still unpredictable where their season will be going. It seems to be going a bit downwards now as well. But yeah, they're still in the middle of the pack, and yeah, which is probably already, well, more or less what they could wish for this season, I guess.
Yeah, it just feels inevitable that they're going to be somewhere between like 9 and 12, or like 7 and 12, aren't they? They'll end up. They seem like a kind of shoe-in to be in playoff too. I just feel like they'll have enough to stay out of that bottom bit because they can defend. I don't know if they can defend well. Do you know what I mean? Like they give away loads of chances, but they don't concede. And when they don't score at the other end, it's like they just pick up so many draws and stuff like that. And if you said they'd be level on points with Dender after 16 or 18 games, or you'd be like, it's actually kind of hard to imagine what that would have been. You'd have been like either Dender having a great season or Standard having a terrible season. It's kind of both having average seasons, whereas for Dender it's an amazing season. So yeah, it's quite an interesting one. One of those sides they drew with recently, and you mentioned the other side that they've lost, or not lose to, but it felt like a loss, was Charleroi. They travelled to Leuven and had just pretty much as kind of disastrous game as you could. Like, if you're getting 2 men sent off and missing a penalty, it feels like there can't be many worse things to happen to you. And this is after they'd kind of put together that 1-1 draw with Standard where they rescue at the end. They go to Antwerp and have like a 3-1 win. So you're like, okay, maybe something's starting to build. And then they faced the Chris Coleman Leuven, who were okay. Like they played some nice stuff. They moved the ball around quite well. The goal from Indri was quite a nice goal. I mean, awful defending, just no one closing him down at all. But it was a reasonably nice finish from him. Heymans takes a penalty. I think we can talk about penalty takers today. I'm sure we'll talk about penalty takers today, but not the best penalty from him. But you look at that side and you're like, I can't there's not really anyone else in that side that I'd probably want to take the penalty, judging by how poor their finishing has been this year. Andre, second yellow was just a little bit silly. Then earlier the bad, me and Scott spoke about him. We all spoke of him, didn't we? After that, with 1-1 draw with Charleroi, where the fans came out and were like pretty unimpressed with him after scoring, and then giving them kind of the ear and the shush, and coming on and getting sent off very quickly is probably not something that's going to endear you to those fans anymore either. It's early days, obviously, for Leuven under Coleman, but that's now the 1-1 draw with Standard Liège, and then this 1-0 win against Charleroi. Early days, I know, obviously, but it doesn't feel like too much has changed yet. Like, this felt very similar to most of their performances this season, where they probably could have won by more, but they don't win by more, and then they're just holding on to the end, and sometimes that doesn't work for them, sometimes it does. But yeah, I guess for him, it's just get some points on the board. It doesn't matter how at the moment. Stay above that bottom four. Maybe in January do some business, which they probably will do, and kind of see where you go. But at least 2 games without losing is kind of a good thing, I guess. And actually winning a game is quite nice. But it doesn't feel like it was a massive change of like, oh, okay, something really cool is happening here. It's like, okay, maybe this is going to be a little bit slower than people thought and probably people hoped.
Yeah, good analysis. I think it's even 5 games unbeaten for Leuven now in a row. So yeah, that even predates Coleman, of course, in that case. But yeah, also it was our first win in 7. So that tells you a lot about this for at least the 4 previous games. Yeah, so all draws. The last win they got actually was in Charleroi as well. So that's yeah, they like to play them. Even though this game could have gone the other way easily as well, of course. But also, interestingly, Leuven has been a very difficult team to beat at home. I think they still only have lost once against Club Brugge, and very recently, fairly recently still. But it also was their first home win since the summer, since end of August. So yeah. That again tells you a lot about how many draws they are getting, way too many. So obviously, but for Coleman, I guess indeed it's at least he's not missing his start. He's grabbing some points, and yeah, the sky looks a bit clearer now for them. Already a little brighter, but yeah, I mean, everything is still very very close there. So getting out of that relegation zone, and at least inside the top 12 will be the main objective for now. Hermans mentioned in 90 Minutes, another podcast, that he likes to take penalties in the middle, or like he at least asks about or questioned like, well, why don't more players shoot in the middle, because it's an easy option. And apparently, Tobelese has either hurt it himself or it has been passed to him. So yeah, it was in the end an easy save for him, more or less, for on the penalty spots. That yeah, of course, it's a story, it's a narrative. I mean, yeah, it can also be just a bit of luck, of course. Who knows? But yeah, that's the thing to mention. And Charleroi, yeah, still playing well, like most of the last few weeks actually, but they're not getting enough points for that. And yeah, that put them back to square one basically. And unfortunately, also indeed with the frustration taking over at the end, getting 2 red cards, 2 players sent off. Yeah, that doesn't help for your future perspectives either. So yeah, it's not completely back to square one, but they're again back into that relegation mix. Yeah, they never really escaped out of it, but yeah, they're not not grabbing the points they need. It's not only a thing for the last few weeks, actually the whole season already. Yeah, which is no surprise with the ongoing striker issue that we keep on talking about. I won't touch on it too often this time, but yeah, it's still there. And yeah, they really give them one good striker, and they're in or around the playoff, the Champions playoff spots. So yeah, that's the reality. And now they're still fighting to keep out of the relegation zone.
Yeah, you just wonder how good some of those players' numbers would look in terms of assists if they actually had a striker. Like, some of these guys could be right at the top. like an Adams Organ and people like that. Like they could be right up there, like Bernier, but they're not because no one's putting the ball in the back of the net. And yeah, it's so clustered around kind of just above the drop zone. But there's like, I think the gap, what Charleroi and Trinity gap's 3 points. Like every week there's a chance for some of these sides to build that gap a little bit more, and they just don't seem to be taking them. And to be fair, Leuven have the biggest opportunity to do that just before the Christmas break. Circle away on Sunday, then they finish 2 days after Christmas. They host Beerschot at home. So those are two pretty big games. If Coleman can win both of those, that opens up a pretty nice gap to then start being like, he can talk more about kind of playoff 2 and just kind of pushing through into that. Lose those 2 games and they're right back in there. One side that has Beerschot coming up, I think it's this weekend. Yes, they're away to Beerschot on Saturday. So they decided that they need to change manager after they lost 3-0 to Dender. That was Kortrijk. And we've spoken about this before, about this year. Everything seems to be working quite well in terms of when we record the podcast and when news and decisions are made. And I think it was literally half an hour before we sat down to do this, Freyr Alexanderson was announced as being sacked by Kortrijk, and it's like they couldn't have timed it any better. That's fantastic timing by them. I even said to you guys, I think at half time, I think he's sacked in the morning. They waited a little bit longer, but this just felt like a sack game. Like there's sometimes like you're kind of, there's just certain games that you kind of watch and you feel like you know what's coming here. It's so toxic and stuff, and it always reminds me there was, I think, a game where we, as Reading fan, we got relegated first time from the Premier League. We lost at home to Fulham, who had been awful all season, and I was like, that's it. Like this just feels like that's the inevitable. And I think it's when Aurelien Schiedler smashed in from that corner that was just awful defending. I was like, that's it, he's gone. Like they look terrible. They can't defend. João Silva's making terrible mistakes for a couple of the goals. He hooked him at half time. Like Kadri, I think, went off. It looked like he got injured. That is a massive blow. The strike force didn't look good. Ferry, we see some great games from him. Well, great moments when he'll score a brace, then he's non-existent. Mesodui hasn't ever really done it for Kortrijk. So, yeah, Dender looked really comfortable, kind of moving the ball around. They looked more physical. Technically, I don't think they looked better than Kortrijk. Like the technical players were better on the Kortrijk side, but Dender just looked like they had more of an idea of what they were doing. They just seemed to have more belief in themselves. And I think, interested to hear what you think, Joris, but you kind of now look back to the summer that Kortrijk had, and none of these guys they've brought in have really done anything. Like Ferry has scored a couple of goals, brought in Gunnarsson to playing goal. He's not really done anything. He got injured and then he's been kind of dropped for Vandenberg. So I'm just going through the list. Takamina, he's looked okay. He got hooked, I think, at half time as well because he wasn't really doing anything. Bramley guys that he's looked right, but again, he's in defence. It's not really making a difference for him in the other bits. Kaneko's shown a couple of moments, but and then Gilles Duval, you know what you're going to get from Gilles Duval. Like he's at the level that he's at. He's never going to be better or worse than that. He's reliably solid, but he's not really improving on what they've already got. So I don't know. Do we think he's been hard done by? Do you think it's an unfair sacking? Like I'm really on the fence about this one because I think he overachieved with the squad he had last season, and then we expected him to do it again. And I think maybe that was unfair on us to kind of expect him to do that. But maybe then it's like, but what? Why hasn't it been able to get the best out of some of these players again? Like, why do they not look as good as they did last year? Is it just, I don't know. It's really difficult to say. And we were speaking before this, trying to come up with names of who could replace him. You suggested Glenn de Bock because it's Glenn de Bock coach season again. Yves van der Haag's a name that I'm just going to keep dropping in until someone picks him up, and Kortrijk probably will. Yeah, a couple of other random names will probably come up. I can't really think at the moment. But I just don't know who they're going to go for, and they're going to have to hope that has a similar effect as what Freyr had at the back end of last year.
Yeah, how much commission do you get for that from Van der Hagen to mention his name every time? And
not enough.
Yeah, clearly. But yeah, it's difficult to say, I guess, if it's rightful decision. Like his story here at Kortrijk seems very similar now after it now ended as the story at Lyngby. Like where first season he saved them from a well, from an impossible position or the seemingly impossible position second season, it couldn't really build on that. So yeah, maybe there's something in that is more like a motivational manager. Of course, you're still always the factors with the fans. He's lost the fans after that these Cardiff rumors a while ago and never won them back. Well, unfortunately, his side have not really consistently performed well enough to give that trust back either. They've got a few wins here and there, but nothing consistently to build on a few weeks in a row, for example. So yeah. I think that probably we talked about that already a few weeks ago. Of course, that definitely will not have helped either. And yeah, I mean, I haven't been too impressed with Gortek. I remember, okay, I have to hold my hands up high. And, after 2 or 3 games in the season, I thought, okay, that they look okay still. They seem to be building a bit on last season, and they will be okay. They look bit better attackingly. Yep, these words. I do not regret them. Never regret anything you say, but yeah, they were completely wrong. That's clear, at least. I'm not flawless, obviously, but but definitely, this was a tough game for them, of course, as well. That they just didn't create enough either. Kadri out won't help now in the future games. Also, especially in this for this crucial game against Beerschot, then. If Beerschot managed to win that one, of course they are actually a bit in the mix, at least for in the fight for the last 2 or 3 places instead of just bottom last. Yeah, it is still definitely be interesting game to watch. And the fans were not happy with the board and the manager. I already noted that down before the sacking news came. Yeah, that's clear. Well, at least one of them has gotten rid of the other one part of this complaints. Let's see what it brings now. Of course, will it be a more usual name as they tend to do, or will it be a bit more out of the box like Alexanderson himself actually was? Freyr Alexanderson was. So yeah, tough call at the moment, I think. And on for Dender again, similar to the game against Club Brugge, the last away game they had. After 15 minutes in the game, they get more or less the first real chance of the game, or at least their first chance of the game, and immediately scored. And this time they were not going to give it away because, well, Joao Silva gave away the other goal like literally 1 or 2 minutes later. So that's something else. Even though I don't want to take anything away from Scheidler in that phase as well. Really nice finish. And okay, it's quite unclear, but it seems like he at least tries to take to get the ball past Joao Silva. And which at least confused him whether he actually touched it and gave it like a nice pass to himself there, or sending himself through, or that he actually also missed it, but just Joao Silva there because of that got did not get anything on the ball there. Probably something for in eternity, but it was a nice finish. And okay, the second one also. I mean, he's not getting. He's been injured a lot and he's not getting the high numbers so far because of that. But I'm quite impressed with Scheidler, which is the few glimpses he has shown this season already. He has some class in him for especially for some technical class as well, especially for such big guy. Not always so easy. He's a bit of a typical player, I guess you can indeed say in general. Like he's also a bit more of a winger, but despite this everything, so like it's a bit strange. But it's relatively effective. He's just not featuring enough because of injury worries. That's also probably why he's a tender at the moment, and not a bit, even with all due respect, but even in somewhere higher in a higher league or a better team in this league. Nonetheless, Tender are playing are getting goals and winning 2 games again right in time. So the 3 goals out of their out of his 4 goals from Berthe as well came against KV Kortrijk. So we also found a favorite opponent for him, much like Van den Ende and Antwerp. Yeah, and that's yeah. Now Scheidler also has doubled. Actually, his well, not more than doubled. He two of his 3 goals now also came against Kortrijk. With such small samples, of course, it's easy to get high percentages and proportions in that, but in such statistics. But yeah, they did play quite well. They defended quite very well actually, and they are really dangerous in the counter attack if they're in a good day. Which yeah, they were in a good enough day for sure. And yeah, these 2 games that they won now basically got them from hanging around that relegation zone to almost in the Champions playoffs. At least at the time of their game, I think the gap increased a little bit again now. But yeah, they are now more in a better position, and let's see if they can keep it up. But I don't think anyone before the season already expected them to be anywhere where they are at the moment.
Yeah, they've won as many games as Union. They're only 3 points off Union, Ghent, 4 points off Antwerp, who are in fourth. Like, it's incredible. It has been amazing, and it's what's been interesting is that recently we've obviously had with the Denzer thing and teams like that, like people saying that you have to really you have to spend so much money to get out of that league, and they've shown that you can be just a little bit clever and do it with recruitment and like picking up these players like Shadler, who's come back. He came off what he played for FC Andorra last year, who got relegated from the Spanish second division, and he's come and playing in the Belgian league, and he looks pretty decent. If he could get like 10 goals from this season, that'd just be an amazing return. Like, I think it's probably a tough ask, but if he can get anywhere near that, that's pretty good for them because they haven't had someone consistently finding the net, but it's just kind of been a collective thing. I think my one thing about Dender is even if they stay up this year, I'll still be worried about them next year. Like, it's never going to change until you see something different, kind of sustainable. But fair play to them. It's great for their fans. They can have a great season. It's kind of one of those entertaining things. Whereas, yeah, Kortrijk fans, they must just be like, this is just getting pretty dull. And yeah, I know we've kind of mentioned football ratings already, but when you go on like the kind of overall team page, you can see like the ratings of the starting 11s and stuff like that. And most of them, you'll have a couple of like green players who are like at least rated like, averaging 7 or above. But if you go on Kortrijk, like, everyone's orange. Like, there's no greens or anything. I think the highest is 6.9, which is obviously probably come from when he scored 2 goals and he gets like that massive boost. And Cadley's around about the same as well. But everyone else is just like, yeah, it's not pretty. Let's speak about the Club Brugge Genk game then, Joris. Have to ask you a couple of questions. Obviously, the first one is, do you think Tolly should be taking penalties? I know that Torsten Fink was like, yeah, he scored a penalty against Roda in a friendly and it was a really good penalty. And I was like, pressure-wise, I don't think it's the equivalent of the two. I think, yeah, it was a pretty tame penalty.
I'll answer that question straight away. No, he shouldn't. There's too many misses from him even in Genk. Unfortunately, who would take it? But okay, I might get to that later in my own section here.
Cool, we nipped that one in the bud. But yeah, Van Kronborg obviously making a mistake for that goal, which is, yeah, frustrating. He'd made a couple of decent saves in the game already. One from Jashari, like a long range shot from him. Then even for the corner that was given as a corner, I can't remember if he saved it or not. But if he did, that'd be frustrating because I think it was going wide anyway. But alas, we've also got to talk about Solis with miss of the season, which I think Fink said was the equivalent of Tolly missing the penalty anyway, so they evened themselves out. Which I thought was quite a funny way of looking at it. Although I'd say that technically Solis's was the easier one because there was literally nothing. He just had to stick it in the back of the net. And yeah, you'd have probably put a little bit of money on him actually putting it in the back of the net. We then get to the free kick and yeah, I watched a video of it earlier again, and I was telling you guys it's hilarious because you've got Elawadi on the right, just standing on his own up against the wall, and he's just pointing at Scott Olsen on the left, and like, look, there's a spare man over there, and no one listens to him. I think Cuesta's being blocked by 2 club players, but he doesn't make the kind of effort or speak to anyone to be like, look, this is happening. And it's just so easy. Like, the pass goes over. Cuesta, he's never going to be able to go around 2 players and get there in time. It was a nice finish from Scott Olsen. I think Van Aken came out after the game and he said he doesn't even know if he likes football. about Scott Olsen. He was kind of like the way he plays. Sometimes you think he doesn't really care, but then he scores goals and you think, oh, he probably does care. So I don't know if that's what you want to hear from your kind of your teammate or anything like that, and kind of one of the club legends. But yeah, Vanaka doesn't really mince words. Mekele got man of the match and was baffled that he got man of the match as well. So it's all a bit bizarre at the end. But I don't know, it just felt, obviously you'll kind of give the Genk perspective and your own perspective and everything like that. But to me, I just feel like it's inevitable. And I hate to say it, and hopefully I'll jinx it, but I just feel inevitable that they're going to win the league. I just have this inevitable feeling that it's going to be Clubs League, just because usually at this point they're some way off the pace and we're all kind of like other club in crisis. And then it gets to January and they go on the run, or they get to the playoffs and they go on the run. But they're already on a run now. Like, it's too early for everyone else for them to be going on this run, and no one else is going on a run to kind of build up a 20-point lead that we know that you need more than if you're going to beat them after last season. So, sorry guys, yeah, I just feel like it's an inevitable club 20th league title. Maybe I'll be proven wrong as long as we get a nice title race. But yeah, I know it's a bit dramatic to say after this game, but that's just the feeling I've been having in recent weeks, especially with how they played in the Champions League. Obviously, we've got to mention that. Beating Sporting 2-1 at home, fantastic result. Great to see Kasper Nielsen score, given everything that's happened with his kind of the death of his son and all that sort of stuff. It's just, yeah, really, really big moment for him, and really nice for him to do it in such a dramatic fashion. And yeah, good. It was a good week in Europe. We'll speak more about the European games after this one in a bit. But yeah, their performances in Europe and now their performances at home, even if they're not playing too well at home, they'll win games. And it's just a bit frightening for the rest of the league, I think.
Well, on the one hand, it's frightening. On the other hand, indeed, they are not playing that well. On this occasion, well, they played well enough. I mean, this was always going to be a Club Brugge win in the end. So I'm not taking that away. This game, Genk were never in it. Basically, I was very, very disappointed / furious / angry / anything negative you can think of. I think with the approach of the game. Because like, yeah, okay, obviously it has to do a bit with like Genk are actually dipping in form. So like also again, both for Club Brugge now being in form and Genk being a bit out of form, you can always read two sides in there, like always, depending on if how the season goes. We will back narrative and back narrative narrate this probably, but. Yeah, the Genk are in a bit of a dip of form, especially in the footballing way. But that's why I was especially disappointed in the way there was that Fink approached this game. Of course, also this is maybe good that this happens now. Maybe this will teach them and him a lot in for the future. In the rest of the games coming up, especially now, still coming up a few more important games and difficult games against Anderlecht and Antwerp before the break, which they seem to need. But yeah, so is that yeah, I even mentioned it as a miss of the decade. That's probably a little bit too much to say, but I feel like it's a little bit, not only because of the miss, but like Nielsen was also there to put it in if he didn't. And there was literally no one. Okay, there were a few. I think Sadik and Smets most likely were relatively close to the line, but like, yeah, they were not gonna be able to stop a hard enough shot in the right direction. But okay, ultimately that didn't matter. But I do agree it was a bigger miss and a penalty even. Yeah. But that's now 10 league games unbeaten for Club Brugge, of course, steaming up together with this with these good results in Europe. Yeah, relatively easy winning the cup as well. So yeah, they're steaming up so far already, and yeah, that it's the most likely scenario that they indeed will go to the title, maybe even cruise to the title. We'll see with the squad they have, with the confidence they have now. They have had a little dip in the beginning of the season already, but they're completely over that. It seems a few players like Yashari have settled in well, who looked a bit off the pace in the beginning still, but that's completely gone. So yeah, that's definitely going well for them. But yeah, on Genk, yeah, just not courageous enough on the ball. very bad tactic or mentality to start the game. I feel like they do not have the defense to really try to control a game like they do here. They kind of have to go for the more or less all out tactics to get the best results. Maybe not completely all out. You can still play a little bit more control, but this time they really like the few times they actually got to the box from Club Brugge, they often just passed the ball back, and ultimately it landed back at Smith's or Sadiq's feet. Yeah, or Van Kronbrugge's feet even. Yeah, that way you're not going to score, obviously. They almost got away with it. I'm not happy that they didn't get away with it, but maybe in hindsight again, maybe this will in the future be a good lesson. But yeah, that Tolo penalty, ironically, is basically probably what Club Brugge got on over the line, because the first half of Club Brugge was really well, was quite well. They had a few good chances. They didn't give away much. Second half, even they were not really playing well. It was just not a really good game at that time. And even Club Brugge, they even also in the first half, like if they were really good, they would have been already a few up by then, even regardless of that big miss of Tolis. There were were a lot on both sides, a lot of technical mistakes and errors and controls going bad, or passes being too far from the man or or back behind the man. Things like that. But yeah, you could see Club Brugge were more in confidence and more trying to get that goal ultimately. And well, in the end, that penalty gave a bit of the game again a bit of a spark, and that played in Club Brugge's favor. I don't. Even if Tolo would have scored or anyone else would have scored, I would not be surprised if the result still would be a Club Brugge win, actually. But of course, not scoring did not help there. And yeah, I was very surprised Tolu took that penalty. Like I mentioned, he missed a few already now for Genk, also for Genk against Club Brugge. Like not against Miolet, actually. It was against Jakkers last season. But yeah, I can get the reasoning a little bit. He was playing. He was not getting enough balls, but he did play relatively well, and he's one of the players up front in the attacking compartment that's actually, despite maybe even not scoring as many goals in the last few weeks, but like he's still playing quite well. But yeah, and he just has missed too many. Sturkers, okay, he has missed one against Anderlecht, and the last few weeks, he's not playing. He is actually not playing well. Sometimes getting his assist or like a few good balls. It's a bit the kind of player that he is, but it's very frustrating to watch a little bit as well. Personally, I feel like Carezza should be getting a little more game time, especially earlier on in the game, to maybe not even start, but like if Circus has a game like the one he has had like this, then get him off after maximum an hour and see how it goes, because I think he has a bit Carezza's in comparison has a bit more flash. Also, depending on Bonsuba being injured, Sor being injured, those players with pace at the left hand side, which can of course help to break defenses over and help attack in the attacking quarter. That there, if it's only coming from Circus, I think it's a bit too predictable at the moment as well. So they need to find a little bit of a solution there. Yeah. For Van Kronbrugge, yeah, also not the first time to have a mistake. Unfortunately, lately it has been costing some points as well. Yeah, not very happy with him in goal. I was a bit surprised that he actually got a contract extension not that long ago as well. Yeah, but okay, we'll see what happens there. I just this Genk side is not really, in my opinion, is never a real title contender so far. They might have overperformed before, but the main thing I want to see again is, regardless of if they get any points or not with it, but to have a bit more courage on the ball again, and yeah, try to win games by to get this attacking flow going again. Yeah. we'll see if they will be able to recover that. And yeah, also of course, I would love to see a lot of points coming from that. But I, in the beginning of the season, I was really looking forward to watching a game, and that has disappeared slightly already. Not only because of the results, but just they're not playing well. Even if they actually, so far the results haven't been too horrible either. Obviously, they're still in first position now, so that's not bad to at any means. And you can also see outside of Club Brugge, like many teams are still struggling and not really getting many points back on them. Antwerp lost, dropped some points this weekend as well. Haven't won in a few weeks, so they actually gained some points in recent weeks on them. Anderlecht actually is okay. We'll touch on them later. They're actually on a good run of form, but yeah, that's something to worry about on Sunday, and hopefully they can, for me at least, hopefully they can do something about that Anderlecht form as well. Yeah, I'll just mention it, but it's not the reason for the loss at all. But like, yes, that was not a corner. I think that for the first goal to begin with, and well, Cuesta, he was never gonna get to Skov Olsen, but he was dry. He would have gotten into line. Onyedika is pulling him on his shirt, and he would have blocked the shot from Skov Olsen, so it would not have gone in my opinion, or at least I think in the current regulations, just that blocking action would have been enough to actually disallow that goal. But I'm not going to hide around that, like I mentioned. But yeah, obviously, like there are. These are game situations and it's difficult to judge, but yeah, and Club should have put 1 or 2 or 3. They would have scored at some point, and Genk were not going to come back in this game. Basically, I've been rambling on a lot to just mention this last sentence as the main summary of this of the game.
No, that's no worries at all. During that time, my son has stopped crying again, so it feels like he just the more Joris monologues, the more he kind of just goes to sleep, which is lovely. But I'm sure the listeners are doing the same. No, but I think your main point is well, like what's so strange is that Fink St. Truda never did that in terms of they always went to try and play and to try and score and to try and attack. Like they didn't have any fear. And now it's kind of strange to see them go into club and it's suddenly he's coaching with kind of fear of losing. It's like that's not been his thing. Which as a player, you're probably a bit like, oh, hang on, why is he doing that? Like, you'd feel a little bit less confident. Maybe you'd understand, maybe you wouldn't. I don't know, but like, yeah, you'd be a bit like, why aren't we doing this? And I think you're right. I think none of us had Genk as kind of title contenders at the beginning of the season. Like we thought this was kind of a year to take advantage of not having European football to get back into European football. So it's like if you get into European football, that's a success. Whereas you look at kind of like, well, we would have said Anderlecht, but then they just messed around all summer, not signing anyone. So again, so it's kind of like we look back in hindsight now and we're like, yeah, this kind of like Genk have surprised us, but then everyone else is kind of what we expected them to be, a little bit. One of those sides that we didn't know what to expect because it was all changed once again with Union. Saw remarkably that since Loic Lapoussin has come back into the side, they haven't lost a game. So he's clearly so important to them, and yeah, he's loving being back. But this game wasn't about Loic Lapoussin; it was all about Franjo Ivanovic. He scored a hat trick. He also scored 2 during the week against Nice. Including a last-minute kind of winner in the Europa League, which was it was a massive, massive result. Like they started that competition really slowly. They had to beat Twente the other day. I thought if they didn't win that one, that was it. Like the competition was over for them. Win that, then beat Nice, then host Westerlo. Ivanovic gets a hat trick within the space of like I don't know what, like 9 kind of minutes either side of half. Scored 2 just before half time. The chipped goal was just sublime as well. Veslo did get one back through Boss. It kind of all the goals happened between the 40th minute and the 55th minute, and that was it. That was the end of the scoring in this one. But Union are really starting to kind of motor under Pocagnoli. Like when did they last? I can't remember when they last lost. They haven't lost since kind of October at home to Cercle Bruges. A couple of draws in that time, but a fair amount of wins as well. Circle just seem to be their kind of bogey team because they're the only team they haven't beaten them this year, but they've kind of done well against kind of most other sides so far this year. Kind of proof that you should be patient, I guess, sometimes with some coaches, and that eventually they can turn around if you have enough faith in them. I think Ivanovic looks. I know it's kind of maybe seems a bit kind of over the top to say it, but there's something about him. I think you even said it, Joris, in his first game. You were like, "This guy looks actually quite good." There are a couple of moments that he's been showing, so I feel like, yeah, definitely onto something. He's only 21 years old. How many goals he scored for them? Yeah, 7 goals in 19 games. That's a quite nice return, considering he's taken a little bit of time to get going as well. 5 goals in the space of a week. You can't really kind of argue with that. For Westerlo, yeah, they're kind of dropping into that relegation fight again, and I don't want to say they've got enough to definitely stay up, because you feel like every time they kind of can put a game together, you're like, oh, they look good, like they're a really decent side to watch. They can be quite fun. They can be quite dynamic, and then they'll go lose a couple on the bounce as well. And now that's 4 games without a win, 3 defeats as well in that time. One of those was in the cup to Anderlecht, but they lost 4-1 in that one. Then the Dender loss, and then this loss. And it's kind of what they got Mechelen and Club coming up. Mechelen on a bad run of form, so maybe that could be a chance to get a nice home win before the end of the winter, the end of the 2024 calendar year, and they play Club. So yeah, tough couple of games coming up for them, and only a 4-point gap over the bottom sides, where Union now jumped into 6th place. I know I said that Club are gonna win the league, but maybe Union have learned that you need to start the season pretty rubbish and then just build and build and build and build, and then come the playoffs, smash it. So maybe they're going to do a club to club, and it's going to be like this incredible kind of like that kind of Black Mirror sort of moment where like the thing we never expected to happen happens, and everyone's like, "Whoa, what's happening here?" I don't think that's going to happen, but if they did that, I'd be like hats off. That's actually quite hilarious.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's 11 games unbeaten in all competitions for them. Indeed, since October, since that must have been since that loss against Cercle Brugge. And yeah, Ivanovic indeed on fire this week. All 5 goals that Union scored in the 2 games in these 3 days of time. And despite that, both Union and Ivanovic probably haven't been as efficient. Well, especially Union on the whole haven't been as efficient in these games. They're not doing enough despite scoring. Despite scoring 3, they still underperformed their expected goals. For example, in these games, that says a lot. And Ivanovic personally, then of course also more than doubling his total in the league now. Well, you heard Ben say 7 goals, 5 of them came in the last week. So that's yeah, he needs to continue on that form, or others strikers need to be scoring, which has, to be honest, has been happening the last few couple of weeks. Enough, but there still is some unlocked potential there for goal scoring. But on Ivanovic, yeah, okay, that's a call. It's too early to say whether I call it right, but I do still think there is a player in there. Like this time, it were not the most difficult goals. One against the winner against Nice, though that was a really good finish. His third one in here was also good. The other 2 were, well, easy goals. Only Solis with miss maybe, but that only this week either as well. But that's good for them. And yeah, like they're indeed. So Club Brugge is not the team with well, in the league, I guess they probably are, but are not the only team that is gearing up. There's at least 1 and actually 2 Brussels sides that are at the moment. But Westerlo, they indeed only got 1 point out of their last 5 games, I believe. Yeah, dropping down the rankings. I think I will still say they have enough. I will be be daring enough to say it, but they should have enough. They should get some wins here and there. Even in this game, they deserve to lose it, or rather, Union deserve to win it. But Westerlo also had their chances. It could have easily been like a similar game. It still almost was as a reverse fixture where Westerlo went 4-1 up, and then in the end it became 4-3. Similarly, this could have easily been a 3-2, or even if they were an unlucky day, a 3-3 as well. They've also gotten their chances. So yeah, but it was they did not really deserve anything ultimately out of this game. And yeah, they need to pick up some points. Maybe a better start doing that against Mechelen indeed. But yeah, also then they will be straight away close to they will be catching Mechelen and close to, well, relatively close at least towards the Champions playoffs if they do so.
Yeah,
Also,
it's
well,
just
also it might be worth to mention as well, two of these informed sides, Union and Club Brugge, are facing each other next weekend. So it's not only Genk and Anderlecht that have a big game, but Club Brugge is going to Union. Maybe I should also mention that still for Club Brugge to maybe give you or for the league a good a better feeling about not giving the title straight away to Club Brugge. They still have to go away to Union, away to Antwerp, away to Anderlecht, and away to Ghent, I believe. So they have a tough schedule in the back end of the regular season. But okay, maybe this was not the right time to throw that one in. But it's also something to consider, I suppose.
yeah, no, all those games could have massive impacts on the title race, depending on what form I guess all those teams are in by that point, and kind of how much of an impact kind of a European schedule might have on those games as well. You mentioned Anderlecht, so let's go to their Centurion game, but quickly touch down in Prague for their game against Slavia in the Europa League. Another win for them, good win. The first goal was hilarious. I've never seen anyone gift anyone a goal as easy as that. The Slavia defence just handing Angelo the open on the plate. Vasharin with another goal, answering critics a little bit. Maybe, and then Joris scored, and people remember Joris actually spent, was it a year, half a year with Zulte Waregem? I think it was a season, 4 goals half a season, four goals in 16 games. He's since been a lot better than he was in that campaign for them, but he's also, was accused of some racist remarks towards Zanka. I haven't seen any more on that, but obviously, if that is true, that's just absolutely horrific and completely unnecessary, and he deserves a hefty fine and a lengthy ban for that. It was quite a week for Zanka, kind of off the back of that. He then got sent off in this game against Sint-Truiden, but the side still won. I think Sint-Truiden can be a little bit frustrated, though. They had enough kind of shots and stuff, but without Bertuccini, they just couldn't score. And I think there was 1 or 2 moments where you just realised that if they'd had him in that certain situation, I thought either he'd have been miles offside or he'd have been quick enough to get the ball that Ferrari couldn't get to, which is hilarious that the man called Ferrari isn't quick enough to get to the ball compared to Bertuccini, but that just is what it is. Apart from that, I thought Sint-Truiden didn't actually play too badly. They just made a couple of really kind of terrible mistakes. The mistake for the penalty was just awful. It's just everything was bad in that one situation. Bad goalkeeping, bad defending, bad goalkeeping again, bad defending again, then a bad tackle. And the tackle was so stupid. I was just cracking up because I thought this is the dumbest tackle I've ever seen. Just flew into the back of him. Dolberg obviously started that one away. I think he mentioned something about he saw Tolu's miss earlier and it was I can't do the same as that, so put it in the back of the net. Anderlecht, they're on a roll. That's 4 wins on the bounce in all competitions. They again haven't lost since that 2-1 defeat to Club in October, and it's been just a weird season for them, isn't it? Because they obviously under Roma they weren't great, but they didn't really lose many games. They look a lot better now under Hubert, but there's also in this game they kind of let a lot of chances happen, and then I don't know what you think. I haven't seen that Zanka red card in slow motion or anything like that, so kind of whatever. When I first saw it, I thought, yeah, that's definitely a red, what a stupid tackle. But then there's people saying he got the ball first, Ferrari got the ball first, all that sort of stuff. So I think they've looked at it again and decided that he's going to have a 1-match ban, but that ban won't be till after the Genk game, which I don't know if that makes you
No,
happy or not.
not no, it's not even that. It's a conditional ban, but it's a very strange decision to be honest. It's like, I mean, I personally think it shouldn't be anything. I think he, in the end, didn't was first on the ball. So well, okay. Obviously, the thing is, if it is a foul, it is a red card. That's the tricky situation for the referee. I can get that. It's also very unclear even on all the images. But still, I got a feeling that he got on the ball first. So and like also by the trajectory of the ball, it looked like it was a natural one if it came from his tip of his foot. But yeah, then okay, to not completely retract him and it and just say like, okay, yeah, this was maybe not a red card. You get nothing, but you get he still got nothing, but like for now at least he got a conditional red one match ban. So if he gets another one, then he get an additional an automatical one, an automatical suspension or additional one match. But yeah, just Anderlecht is indeed still a bit weird. Like they have by far, I think now even, or well, Club Brugge might be close. There might be a few teams close, but the best defense in the league. But you don't have the feeling that they're defending really well either. So like a bit like Standard maybe actually, like similarly, yeah, they are giving away a lot of chances. But yeah, Koolmans undoubtedly has had a really good season so far. But it's not only that; it's just like somehow they are getting some luck on that. Is that sustainable or not? That's of course again a question that well will remain unanswered for the time being, but we will get an answer to later on. But yeah, difficult. And yeah, again, that was where you're getting to? Is it good or bad for Yink that he will be playing? We'll see. I'm not the biggest fan. It looks like together with the team he has improved a little bit in the performances, but even though like he's still on a personal level, I feel like he's still not really the defender they need. And like he's not at the level actually that they need. But yeah, that's something. Well, we'll see. That he is there now. He seems to be getting the confidence from at least two managers already. Okay, granted, there was not that much choice either, but yeah, that's also makes it more difficult to answer the question if it's good or bad if he's not there. Like the replacement is a bit with the whole team shuffle, or would there just be a man-to-man replacement and so on. Uh, Not so easy to answer, but okay. Anderlecht indeed on a roll. Yeah, 13 points out of their last 5 league games. Dolberg now clearing himself from as a clear top scorer for now for the season. Just like their neighbors, 11 games unbeaten in all competitions. Yeah, so all smooth sailing for them at the moment. Yeah, on Sint-Truiden, yeah, they much like Anderlecht, they've adopted the light show now. I must say the Anderlecht one seems a bit more impressive, but nonetheless, there are another side that has shown some light show. But still, despite we saw this little upsurge, well, quite long upsurge in form from them under Mazu, a long unbeaten streak, but they're still hanging in the relegation zone now. So yeah, that's interesting. But what is also interesting, I feel sorry for Scott that he's not there, and that he wasn't there either because he likes to make a lot of fun of it a little bit as well. But there actually was a wasabi tasting before the game, so it was a whole event. That was not only the light show, but so yeah, he would have loved that, or to make fun of that as well, at least. Yeah, that's tangent, I know. But it was their first home loss since Augusto. But also they're infamous in their streak against Anderlecht now as well. Haven't won since 25th of November 2018 against Anderlecht. So that's quite a long time. Obviously, that's across all pitches. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, only one of those games, was it 10 or 11 games? I don't know exactly, but only one of those games was a draw. So they actually lost all of the other ones. So that's just a terrible, terrible streak. Yeah, and yeah, they're still in a pickle.
Yeah, no, they definitely are, and it's funny that's finally we've got to the bottom that they actually did do a wasabi tasting. I can't believe they finally did that. It feels like we've been waiting for them to do some sort of wasabi related thing with that stadium for ages. And blimey, yeah, 2018, like when you start to say that was pre the COVID pandemic, like that's when you start to think, oh flip, like that was ages ago. That feels like another lifetime. Um, let's move on to the final game of the weekend, which was Ghent against Circle. Two good results in Europe from these two guys as well. Like we had a fantastic week for European kind of results from all the Belgian sides. Ghent hosted, I think I said last time, I had no idea who these guys were. TSC Baka Topola. And I like to pride myself on thinking actually, like I know a fair amount about niche European football teams, but TSC Baka Topola were complete kind of unknown to me. Ghent thankfully had done their homework. They won that one by 3-0. So they now are in. They should qualify because the team that they're facing in the final match is Lana from Northern Ireland, who completely fair play. It's fantastic to see Lana in this competition. They're actually really struggling in the domestic league at the moment and stuff, and they haven't won a single game in the Conference League. Ghent just need, I think, probably a point. Oh no, they are. Yeah, they are technically three, but they could get a win and jump into that top 8. But they're definitely going to lose to Lana, aren't they? Like it's written in the stars. This is a Ghent go to Northern Ireland and lose. So if you're a betting person, put all your money on Lana. You heard it here first. They're definitely going to win that one. Circle have a much higher chance of making it into that top 8. And I watched their game against Olympia Ljubljana this week, and yeah, it was great. It was such a good game. Alagbe scored in the second minute, and then they just conceded straight away. Like no messing around, just conceded straight after that. Augusto scored a great goal. Alagbe scored another good goal. Denke scored a nice goal. Players getting sent off for Ljubljana definitely helped, but actually a really decent result for them because Ljubljana, I think they were pretty much they'd lost one game at home all season. They'd only lost one game in the competition. I don't think they conceded a goal at home or anything. So it was a pretty decent start for Ferdinand Feldhofer. Like, I don't think he could have asked for any better way to start than kind of that big win. And yeah, if they can just pick up another win against Istanbul Başakşehir, who I don't think have been too great in this competition from what I remember. Yeah, so they're kind of 24th, so they're literally clinging to qualification to the next round with just one win from their games. But you see a Turkish team, you always think it's going to be difficult. Anyway, digressing a lot from the extra game that took place in the Pro League on Sunday, Ghent just gifted Cercle the equaliser for this one. Awful defending, and Cercle almost messed it up. Denke being unselfish and then his pass wasn't great, but thankfully the ball came back to him and he put it in the back of the net to make it 1-1. But I don't know, Joris, I watched kind of the end of this game and I thought Cercle should have won it. I felt like on the break they just had so many chances to kind of do something with it. I thought Ghent just left themselves way too open at the back and didn't really have too much of an idea going forward. Like they had like one or two chances that Delanga made a couple of decent saves for, but apart from that, I just felt a bit like meh about how Ghent were playing and going forward. Whereas for Cercle, I was like, okay, yeah, I can see like on the break and stuff, which like over the past couple of seasons, that's what they've been good at. Is like if they can get out and run, that's what they like to do. So I guess they'll be happy that they rescued a point, but they might be a little bit disappointed that they didn't pick up all 3, especially as that could have dragged them out of that bottom 4. Again, too early to say anything about Ferdinand Feldhofer. I think they've obviously, after this Başakşehir game, they've got Leuven and St. Truden, which, 2 massive games. We sort of talked about the Leuven game already, but if they can beat those guys and St. Truden, you'd feel a lot better about their situation going into January. Ghent, obviously, you mentioned Lana, then they've got Standard and Union, so they'll probably lose to Standard, and then I don't know what they're going to do against Union. You can't predict this team, like they're so like unpredictably weird. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do in January with everything going on as well. But yeah, they're sitting in 5th still. They haven't dropped into the bottom, kind of the second playoff way we know they're going to end up. So that will inevitably happen at some point. But I think, frustration for them. And you can see the fans are a little bit frustrated because there's basically no one there on a Sunday evening for this one.
Yeah. In the end, I think indeed Cercle the most disappointed side of the two. They really should have put at least scored more than one. Yeah, that definitely. Yeah, it's still a useful point, I guess. But yeah, now they're next to Kortrijk, so they caught up with one team, but they could have done a lot better. Um, yeah, especially with the Denver and Leuven wins this weekend, that doesn't help either. For in their case, they were, because of other results, these sides actually they had a massive leap. What seems to be a massive leap with just one win. Yeah, and Cercle actually deserved to win this game ultimately. Also, of course, now it was Donke's final game. He has scored in both his final games in Europe and in the league, so proving his and scoring his 10th goal of the season as well in the league. So proving his word again. Yeah, they will see how they will fare without him. The moment has come. Yeah, we know indeed Augusto Enolaibe probably have gotten some confidence out of the game on Thursday, but yeah, nonetheless we'll have to see is that actually a real number one striker in either one of them, or someone else still. Yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, a good. You would think if ahead of before the game started, you would have thought a good result for them, maybe, even though we know Hint has been topsy turvy this season. Yeah, for Hint, really, it's also still stop start, no need topsy turvy. So Sonko got us actually illustrated that a bit inside this one game. I guess he got his second goal, so I think it's even a second goal in a row, or no, not maybe not in a row, but like second home game in a row. I think he scores in the league. But yeah, before that he did everything wrong. Apparently, had a terrible game, and after that, it improved. So it's like you can see what one goal does with his confidence. Apparently, I haven't watched too much of this game myself, so I have to base myself on others. But like apparently, he was one of the better players on the pitch afterwards, and definitely the best hand player on the pitch. But yeah, that's good for him after almost a year. Maybe he can finally come through, but you can still see it's very fragile even inside this one game. Yeah, and well, another thing related to this game, but also not very related, I guess, is against signing Leonardo Lopez da Silva, of course, previously at Cercle Brugge. Yeah, I'm just curious if the announcement of that is like, is it a coincidence or not? And it's like right before the game against Cercle. It doesn't really matter. I think most likely not in this case, since well, it's a free transfer, and they want to have him as soon as possible. Even though I think he can only feature in January. And anyway, I can assume, regardless if that's even if that's a legislation, that he will need some time anyway to adapt again to a team football. At least I'm sure he did some individual training in the meantime, and yeah, probably some like we could do some games among friends, but I can't imagine him being in a very competitive environment, professionally competitive environment, as he will meet now. But yeah, interesting to see how he will fare at Ghent. Seems a bit like a Ghent transfer as well, but I mean, he's been really good at Cercle Brugge. Do they need him? Yeah, I think they do need something in midfield. Is it this type of midfielder they need? That's another question, maybe still. But well, I think it's a good pickup for ultimately. But yeah, for him, topsy turvy, stop start season, not really kicking on, but like circling around that fifth spot, which yeah, they seem to always do.
I was just imagining poor people turning up to their local five-a-side on a Monday night and Leonardo Lopez turns up and you just feel like, oh, great, this man's a menace. Yeah, he's such a good player. I think because I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, I think you and Scott were like, I couldn't believe he's still a free agent. Like, it was bizarre. One of the best kind of winning the ball back in the kind of pro league in the last couple of years, and kind of just his all-round play has been it's been really good. So I think you're right. I feel like obviously they lost Julian Dessart in the summer, like slightly different players, but having just a little bit of extra manpower and quality midfield. Sven Coombs is obviously about 50 years old at this point, so they do need like another body just in case his body does finally break down. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he fits in. And Sonka, I forget he's still only 19, so it's kind of, you want to give him as much time. It's just the price tag weighs so heavy on his head that you were expecting this young player to just come in and light things up, and he hasn't done that yet. But yeah, he did have some flashes, and he did look a lot better post the goal. But then Cercle should have definitely won this game, in my opinion. Let's quickly go down to the Challenger Pro League. Obviously, we haven't got Scott this week, our resident Challenger Pro League super fan. So we will muddle our way through this. But there have been some news. And Joris said you were going to kind of teach us how to pronounce the manager's name. So we'll get to that in a bit. Thankfully, me and Scott's not here to butcher it, and I'll just not even attempt it if I possibly would butcher it. But I'll quickly go through the results. Beveren, they beat Lies 1-0. They were down to 10 men for that one. Lies then sacked their manager. Raal beat Salang 1-0 to keep up their promotion battle. Big game, Lommel against Zultewaregem. Lommel down to 10 men. Zultewaregem won that one 2-1. Frank Brand, they beat Anderlecht Futures 1-0 on pretty much the worst pitch I've seen this season. It was basically a sand pit. I don't know what happened in that Union Nice game, but yeah, the Badawin looked awful. Looked really bad, and not a great advert for second division football or for having academy teams in the league. Open Denzer never took place, obviously, because Denzer don't exist anymore. Again, like we said, if you want to hear more about that, me and Scott did touch on it last week with our opinions, but Scott's gone much more into detail than that in the Football Heritage podcast, so you can check that out. Young Genk, they threw it away against Patrick Eisen, who won 3-1. Lokeren beat Liège 1-0 away from home. And then Molenbeek finished off the weekend with a 1-0 win over Club Next. So that means after kind of all the points were taken away and mixed around with the departure of Denzer, Zultewaregem were top of the league. They're level on points with Raal, Molenbeek in third place, but they're now 5 points off those top two. Patcha in the same situation. They're 30 points, 5 points off. Lommel way behind now. They're on 15 points. And I think it was Captain Scoof said this week that, it's pretty much impossible that they're going to make it into the top two despite their ambitions for the season. He didn't want to say nothing is impossible, but he'd already said it is impossible. So I'm not sure which one of those he actually believes. I'm going to go with it's probably very unlikely and pretty much impossible for them to catch up. I think in this league, a 15-point gap is pretty big. Young Genk at the bottom, Anderlecht Futures just above them, Salang just above them. Denzer was still listed on the Google table. They're just kind of sitting there, just chilling on 15 points. Don't think that's going to change. But yeah, we had the managerial change at Lies. Joris, tell us who this man is so that I don't butcher his name.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's probably the last time in this section for a while now. The Christophe Grégoire got sacked beginning this week, before recording. That after the results of the last couple of weeks have been not great. I believe they haven't won in 6 games or something like that. They're still in eight positions, which is not terrible, but their points are. Oh wait, I also have to check. I'm not sure if my table is correct either. I think Google actually is wrong as well. I think it might have to do with officially saying that the official statement and that Dance is out of the league. But like they will go to 0 points and they're 50. Well, the points they have gotten will get subtracted. So I believe actually it's indeed Young Genk at the bottom. Frambarin won, but they were next to Young Genk before this happened. Although, okay, it's a bit difficult to go into these details at the moment with the tables being not correct. So I'll skip that part. But yeah, anyway, Lierse sacked their manager because of the disappointing results, and yeah, they are dropping down the table because of that, these results, and I think that's what was worrying the staff as well. And maybe the news with Danza, Scott gave a nice suggestion there already, that maybe an former player from them and the former manager of Danza, or maybe is it officially still current? Okay, we're back in that mess. But Hernan Osada might be open to it. Maybe they've had contact with him, and is that the reason why they know, okay, he's interested? Maybe he will take over. Okay, this is all speculation, of course, so don't read too much into that at this point. But it was a suggestion Scott made, and well, I'm not completely. Yeah, I mean, it's not completely unrealistic that this actually happened.
Yeah, or maybe he's on his way to Kortrijk. Who knows? Like, yeah, but he's such a fun coach. It'd be great to see him stay in the league, stay in Belgian football somehow. And yeah, if he goes to Liège, I just found a different table as well. Like, it is quite confusing, but this one actually has Denzer with 0 points. So looks like Zultavagem are top with 34, Raal second with 32, Molenbeek still 5 points off top. So that still stands, and Lommel still being 15 points of Zultavagem also still stands. So that was a massive win for Zulta, and feels like with the money they kind of spent on their squad over the last 2 seasons, they kind of need to get promoted this year as well, because you just don't know what's going to happen if that doesn't happen either. I think that pretty much does it for this week's episode. We will be back hopefully next week for one more before the Christmas break. There might not be one after the Christmas games because it's just going to be a bit difficult to fill in, but we'll see what we can do. We have a little bit more time to play with, obviously, with the short winter break, but we'll keep everyone updated with that. Joris, it's been a pleasure joining you for a very unique 2-man show that doesn't usually happen.
No, it's true. Yeah, even last week I think it was. I was jokingly saying like having the two people person episodes has to do with only with Scott, not with us, because neither of us two has ever missed any episodes in at least in the past few months. And Scott, always has been there. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it today for personal reasons. But hopefully, he will be back in the next episode as well.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. He can't stay away for longer than a week. We know that he's too enthusiastic about the Belgian game to kind of stay away for that long.
He probably will. He probably will have guessed it in 5 other podcasts by then as well.
Exactly. You'll get your Scott fix somehow this week, that's for sure. Definitely on the Football Heritage and maybe on a couple of other ones as well. But as always, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you like what we do, leave us a review on your podcast app of choice, or you can donate to us to help us with the running of this one, which is Buy Me a Coffee, which you can find the link on all our socials. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the build up to the festive break. If you've finished work already, enjoy the time off. If you're about to finish work, keep going. You're almost done. And if you're working over Christmas, you're a hero. Just keep going. We respect you for that. But yeah, we'll speak to you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.